Hello everyone and welcome to Reviews of Ryan, and today on the channel I'm going to talk about the brand new horror film called Moloch, which is going to be premiering on Shudder on July the 21st, and I got an early screening to check it out and let you guys know my thoughts. This film was directed by Nico van den Brink, and he's done a lot of short films, so this is pretty much his directorial debut. And real quick before I get into my thoughts on this, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, give the video a like, comment below your thoughts, and also turn on the notification bell so you never miss any video that I make and I post weekly. And now without further ado, let's get into my review. Beatrix lives at the edge of a peat bog in the north of the Netherlands. When she and her family are attacked by a random stranger one night, Beatrix sets out to find an explanation. The more she digs, the more she becomes convinced that she is being hunted by something ancient. The film stars Annika Bloch, Johan Fretz, Marcosa Hammer, Sally Harmson, and many more. So when I got the screening to Moloch, I didn't really actually read the synopsis on this. I just looked at the poster and just jumped straight into this film. So I really didn't know what to expect with this film. So I just wanted to have a decent film. And I think that we got a pretty decent film here. So let's start off with the positives of this film. I really did like the bluish and yellowish colors throughout this film. It's filmed really nice. I did like a lot of the darker scenes, especially involving the fog in this. It looks really good on screen, and then you add on the soundtrack to it and has a really haunting kind of menacing theme, especially during the crucial horror parts of this film. And then I also did like that this film does have jump scares, but there's not an overabundance of jump scares, and the jump scares they have, they're really effective. And then the film is also split in kind of different genres. You have drama, you have ghost story, you have a little bit of cult. And I like that they mix all these genres together because it's not just like a typical kind of horror movie. You have lots of different things going on here. And then on top of that, you have a film that is not an English film, it's actually a Dutch film, and you have Dutch language in this, so it's really cool to hear the different kind of accents with this Dutch language, and then just trying to really follow along with these characters, as there's a lot going on here, and it's a film you really have to pay attention to because there's a lot of different moving pieces to this film. I really like that this film really did create a lot of tension at times, especially in the beginning of the film. You have this guy that is stalking them outside their house, and he ends up breaking into their house and really causing havoc and causing a shock to them. And then you have other things going on with different ghosts in this, and then you have scenes where you have lots of tension in the woods, and you have these different ghosts chasing different people, and then you have a little bit of backstory with this woman in here that has lost her grandmother. In the beginning of the film, you see this little girl, she is sitting down and she ends up hearing a scream, and her grandmother gets murdered, and then you see this blood pouring through the floor, and that was a really cool way to start off this film. And then when this film does get into the 30 years later that it goes into, it then has a really cool scene where it shows the drone shot, and then it has the title come up in red. And I really like that cool effect that they had in the beginning of the film and the intro and just setting this up. And then you get to learn a lot about these characters. You learn about this woman's family, her father, her mother. Her mother has an illness. Her father really lost his mind, and he was kind of a drunk for a while, and he's kind of crazy, and he's kind of angry at times, and you can really tell that that family dynamic is she really doesn't trust these parents. She has a child, a little girl, and then she also had a husband at one time, but that husband passed away. So this woman really is dealing with a lot of different trauma throughout her life. And then on top of that, she has somebody stalking her, and then she also had somebody actually die out in this bog, which if you're not familiar with a bog, it's basically a swamp. And then talking about my negatives for this film, I really didn't like how we got a switching of Dutch to English language. It does switch off a lot, and it made the dialogue of the film feel very uneven. And then there is another particular scene with dialogue where this guy is stalking this woman, and then he breaks into the house, and he has kind of some cringy dialogue. It's a little bit awkward. I didn't really think that his acting was really on par with the other actors with that particular scene. And then I also didn't like that in certain parts of this film, there is a lot of really spooky moments, and you're really getting amped up. You're like, yes, this film is really going to bust open, and it really is amping up. And then it kind of cuts off from those spooky moments, and it goes back to a lot of dialogue between characters, and you're getting a little bit of drama, and you're getting a little bit more story unfolding, but you're not really getting the full effect of those spooky moments. And really, most of the spooky moments in this, it's a little sporadic throughout the film, but then like the last 25 to 30 minutes, it really does pour on the horror aspect. It gets extremely dark and really strays into this really dark kind of story. So I did really like that, but at times I wish that we were a little bit consistent with some of the spooky moments and trying to keep up with the whole intensity of the movie. My last negative on this film is I really didn't like one particular character, and it's this guy that falls in love with the woman. He is the head honcho guy that is basically in charge of the people digging in this bog, and he ends up having this love connection with this woman and finding out what she's all about. And I thought that it was a little bit cringy at times, especially the dialogue. Honestly, his voice and how he acted, it reminded me a little bit of Liam Neeson at times. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, his voice really reminded me of like an older Liam Neeson. I just thought that his role in trying to basically sway this woman and make her fall in love with him, he just seemed like he was too old for the role. And there's this one particular scene where he basically calls her crazy, and she gets really pissed and she jumps out of the car, and it's a darker scene and they're running through this woods or whatever, and then they have this really awkward kind of sexual scene. I didn't really like that. I don't really think that it really needed to be needed, and it felt a little forced. So that whole love connection, it could have been thrown out, and really I didn't really care for his character. So writing wise, they could have wrote him out, not even had him a part of the film. I don't really think that she really needed a love connection at all in this film. Overall, Moloch for me was very visually good and had some really good sound, and it does stumble a little bit on its characterization, and some of the writing, some of the dialogue is a little cringy, like I said. But I think overall it's a pretty decent film. It touches on drama, it touches on horror, it touches on a ghost story, it touches on some really dark aspects. And I think for somebody that may not really like horror, or maybe they just want to really get into horror or really get into maybe an introduction of horror, I think this would be a pretty good movie to actually dive into. I don't really think it's a really violent movie. There is a little bit of blood here and there, but it's not a gory film. And it has a little bit of jump scares, like I said. So I think that you get a lot of different genres here. And I think someone that may not want a horror film that really is amped up the entire time and really has a little bit of different story to it and some creepiness as well, I think that they'll really appreciate this film. And those are my thoughts on this film. I would give this score of this film a 3.5 out of 5. I think it's a pretty solid film. It has a little bit of things that really could have been fixed about it, but I think overall for what we get here, I think it's a pretty solid film, and I enjoyed myself watching this film. Thank you guys for watching my review, and I'll see you guys on my next one.